Hey guys, and welcome back. Previously on Okami, we rescued Ume the dog, and oh, isn't Kokari happy?
I know, he's just like, give me back that key so I can go save Ume. And she's like, he's here, you twit.
Yeah, we beat down a spider queen together, it was rad.
And the thing that's quite hilarious is that you're going to find out is that Ume didn't really want to go back to Kokari, because Kokari was being a whiny baby.
Oh, jeez.
So Ume was just like, yeah, I'd rather just stay here, you know? As you do.
I'd laugh if, like, it was like, fine, if that's the way you feel, I'll put her back in the centre of the fucking thing. I just realised I'm calling him or her. I'm sorry, it's the first video of a new recording session, get over it.
And I mean, to be fair, it's not wholly unreasonable, because whenever we deal with animals, it tends to happen that in our heads we automatically go he, because we don't like calling things it, because that just sounds rude.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So it's either he or she. Probably we should start using they when referring to animals, but that's getting into a real thing of gender politics.
Yeah, we're here for that shit.
Probably not worthwhile.
We're here to talk about, like, cartoon dogs and buttholes!
These are the issues of Okami. We can leave the gender behind, because fishing poles and dog buttholes are where it's at for this part of Okami.
So is Kokari going through an arc here? Oh, I think he is. He's going to go and fix the bridge that leads to Taka Pass, I believe.
Yes, indeed, he is. Obviously, before we actually do that, we got a new weapon, the Snarling Beast, which is glorious, and that's going to be our main weapon for the time being. Good job I got that extra gold dust, eh? Because I can just upgrade it immediately.
Nice, nice.
And basically, whenever we get a new weapon, I am going to be equipping it and making use of it. So the general gist is that throughout the entire walkthrough, you will see every single weapon in the game for at least some period of time.
That's cool.
There's at least one which will really get very little use, largely just because it comes at a point where almost immediately afterwards you get a better weapon. Which is a shame.
That always happens in video games. It's very hard to ever strike a balance, because there's always going to be preferences, you know? Like, again, going back to Metal Gear Rising,
yeah.
I just enjoyed using Mistral's staff. I would say the only other one I bothered to use besides that was friggin', I forget his name. Oh, Monsoon Size, because they're really good against, not Armstrong, the other dude, the guy who loves murder.
Sundowner.
That's the one.
Yes. So, right, what we're doing in this part right now is we are making use of Vine, because obviously we picked that up in the dungeon, and now we are going to see what awaits us if we use Vine in various locations, mostly just around Agatha Forest. Might pop back to Shinshu Fields, see how I feel. But quite a lot of it is going to be going back through the dungeon to use Vine in various locations, because there's a whole lot that gets unlocked. And as I believe I said in one of the last parts, this is one of the only dungeons in the entire game where something like this happens, where a ridiculous amount inside the dungeon gets unlocked after you've beaten it. It's strange.
I'm not sure how to feel about that. I think they could have done a lot more with, like, post-dungeon antics. It would have definitely set it apart from, like, again, Zelda and whatnot.
I mean, I think it's one of those things. I'm not quite sure what the thought process was behind why it's ended up the way it has. I mean, certain dungeons, it entirely makes sense that you can only go through them once. But quite a few, they are still about. So it doesn't make an entire amount of sense, but it's the way the game was designed. There's not a whole lot we can do about that.
I gotta say, I love both the look and the design of, well, I guess they're the same thing. Look, aesthetics, and I guess design, animation. It's essentially a sun, is the Snarling Beast, and I think that is reflected better than your very first weapon, the reflector or whatever it was.
Yes. I mean, it's quite fun because all of the weapons do have a very distinctive look and feel, and ultimately they will end up having different elements associated with them as well.
Okay.
But that's gonna be very, very, very far into the future.
Oh, and it sounds like we're getting a magic upgrade at some point then.
Well, you'll see what I mean.
Terrible, mate. Your subtlety has not improved at all. It's the pause, honestly. If you were a little bit quicker on the uptake, I think I probably would have been led down the wrong path there. But as is, you've just given the game away.
Well, you see, this is because I have to think for a moment of going, is it a magic upgrade?
Will he fall for this? Is he stupid enough? Probably, but I've got to phrase it about hurting his feelings, which happens very easily.
Oh dear. But yeah, we are basic. Well, the thing is that obviously as you progress throughout the game, you get different abilities. I did already suggest that the brush techniques have different elements associated with them.
I probably just wasn't paying attention at that point then.
So you'll, I'm sure, begin to figure out quite quickly what some of the other elements involved in that whole thing with the brush techniques is going to go. And yeah, I just felt like, diving down to the bottom here for no good reason.
Oh, Richie. Richie.
Now, I believe that if you wanted a slightly easier way to get up to that hideous chest or whatever it was that was at the top of that ridiculous jump.
Yes.
This is basically the path that you would probably want to take to get there, because you'd create a lily pad and then I think you've got a better chance of jumping up to the top.
I wanted to say this when we were going through the dungeon the first time, but Richie was covering something else at the time. I didn't want to cut him off. The massive statue right in the centre, surrounded by water, reminds me so much of a similar statue in the Ancient Cistern dungeon in Zelda Skyward Sword.
Well, I mean, I don't think the Ancient Cistern statue is based on the Dogu.
No, it's very Buddha-esque, actually.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that entire dungeon is based on a Buddhist legend, I think, actually.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact name of the thing, but I'm sure if you watch any decent Skyward Sword playthrough or walkthrough that's been done since that whole thing came out, I'm sure it will be there as a bit of information.
Oh, upcoming playthroughs, maybe? We'll have to see.
I think we will indeed have to see on that front. I mean, one prime suggestion I would say would be Trigger Conroy's currently doing Skyward Sword on his channel, and he has talked about that very thing. And I think also Game Theory, at some point in one of their videos, it might have been a Gaijin Goober one, they've talked about the story as well, so those are probably decent sources to get a decent thing.
Sorry, did you just call him Gaijin Goober?
Goomba.
I was gonna say. Very rude of you, Richie. Come on, these are our contemporaries here.
Yeah, but they have no idea who we are, so...
Good point. Good point, well made.
Now, you may have noticed that I'm currently getting a little bit confused as to where everything is. Like, I did one loop and thought I'd gotten everything, and then I realised, oh, no, there was one thing missing. It's slightly difficult to make sure that you've gotten everything, because it's not necessarily clear where these hidden little nooks and crannies are.
Ah, well, that's why they're hidden, Richie.
Exactly. Thankfully, this quite clearly needs a bomb in it, so we get to see what awaits us inside, which is probably just a treasure of some description. Oh, it's a stray bead.
Beautiful.
I'm happy with that.
She swims like a dolphin, does Amy, I noticed.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because in the initial... Well, not necessarily the initial, but in part of the planning phases for Okami, and even got as far as concept art, Army was going to transform into different animals depending on what she was doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds cool, actually.
Yeah, so when she was in the water, she was going to be a dolphin. I think there was also a like bird, like eagle transformation planned.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff. And obviously, in terms of the way she swims, that has effectively carried over. There's not a lot else from that whole transformation thing that has, but it is a nifty little thing that they were planning on doing but just never got to, and also I don't think it necessarily would have worked quite so well.
I think the decision to stick with the wolf and just the motif in general suits Abby better than kind of confusing the narrative, so to speak, because it's woven into the story as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it makes sense for her to be a wolf and to stay as a wolf. And also, have you noticed how much more powerful the snarling beast is than
yeah.
previous weapons?
I'm loving this shit.
It's really quite awesome to see the order of magnitude of the weapons as they get stronger, because obviously you have different sets almost. So, I believe it's Divine Retribution is one of the two first weapons we got. Oh god. But basically, first Refractor and first Rosary fit into the same category. Snarling Beast and whatever fit into the same category. And they are generally of the same power levels in terms of what you're going to get out of them. There is one exception in the form of the final type of weapon that we're not going to see for a little while yet at least, which is the most powerful of the bunch, in a single blow anyway.
Me likey.
But obviously because it's powerful, it's slow. You get the gist.
Yeah, that's the trade-off, really.
But you get the first set of weapons, the second set of weapons, and so on and so forth. You're not necessarily going to get them in the same order all the time, but it is nice to know. And also, for God's sake, this ground! It's really irritating.
You can't dig through it yet, mate. We need special claw weapons for that.
What, we need Mogma mittens?
Essentially, yeah. Which claws did you prefer, mate? The ones from Minish Cap or the ones from Skyward Sword?
Oh gosh, ooh. I'm not really quite sure, all things considered, because it's been a very long time since I played either game. Let's just go with the Mogma Mittens, if only because I liked Skyward Sword cinematics, and clearly the Mogma Mittens have everything to do with the cinematics.
Henshin a go-go, baby. It was my turn to say it that time. I like the ones from Minish Cap, just because they're actually useful in boss fights and whatnot, and alright, Onigiri, Sensei, Sama-kun, Senpai, give me a new ability.
Well, it's not necessarily a new ability, it's just adding an extra hit to our combo with our rosaries, which is really awesome. And basically, like, the combos on these things just keep going, and it's glorious.
I love the Devout Beads. It's just, they look cool, and I've always liked multi-hit weapons, you know?
I know. I am always a fan of the rosary weapons, because they just feel so satisfying to use. I mean, to be fair, they are sort of ever so slightly easy mode in a way, because they do just rack up that damage quite quickly. But it's just really satisfying, especially in the Wii version, because obviously you're sort of whipping enemies with it, if you get the drift, and just pulling that off is just really awesome.
You know, it's funny you say that, because I actually enjoyed the motion controls in Twilight Princess over Skyward Sword just for that kind of thing. Because if you just, like, waggle, you know, haphazardly in Skyward Sword, as much as I would critique those motion controls, you do have to have a bit of finesse to them. But in Twilight Princess, you're just like, yeah, I am a big boy with a sword. It's just very cathartic, you know?
I mean, I have to say, I think that while obviously Skyward Sword's motion controls are flawed, they did at least get the attempt at one-to-one movement down. It's obviously quite glitchy, but it's still quite effective. But I do agree that I prefer just give it a slight waggle. Don't make me do any actual work. I'd prefer to just get through things quite easily, because if you just do a small little waggle to do awesome stuff, then you just feel really badass with very little effort.
Oh, we're a bunch of plebs and casuals here at HFC. And I'm sorry we're talking about Zelda so much, you might have to get used to it. It's just it's the nature of the beast, really.
Well, yes, considering, this is essentially based on the Zelda formula.
Yeah.
As much as obviously Okami is its own thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it will always be its own thing. It's obviously incredibly inspired by the Zelda gameplay formula. And rightly so.
Back here again. Oh, it's been so long, at least 5 parts.
Well, you see, the reason we've come back here, as you'd expect, is one, to be an arsehole to Kushi by just ripping up all of the wheat.
She did nothing to deserve that.
It'll grow back, it's fine. But also because there's a Konohana Blossom up over here.
Nice.
And we can get another clover, so I'm totally down with this, and pretty much you can just keep climbing up the waterfall, which is really quite fun.
You realise no matter how many clovers you'll get, it will never reopen the studio doors, right?
I know, and it makes me feel depressed. Not that I wasn't already, but...
I think that's the cruelest attempt at a joke I've ever made in a Let's Play.
Yes, Tom, yes it is. But to be fair, Platinum's alive, and Platinum never loses its lustre, so we are all good. There's
the Korra game, there's the TMNT game, there's...
Yeah, there is that.
Another one which escapes me right now, but, and the cancellation of Scalebound, of course.
Tom, do not stab me through the heart with the recollection that I will not be getting another Hideki Kamiya Japanese action RPG anytime soon.
That was bullshit, I'm gonna be frank. I didn't like the look of it. I thought it honestly looked really boring, and I'm not sure why they decided to go down that route. But MS's treatment of Kamiya was horseshit. Especially
Yes.
when they had him literally come out on stage in a business suit of all things, or at least just fancily dressed, something he would usually do. I'm generalising it, but whatever, to, shill his game, which they just cancel on a whim, so fuck 'em.
Yes, indeed. And the thing that really annoys me is that there did seem to be so much potential. And, obviously, well, visually it might not have necessarily had the same Kamiya magic.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that in terms of its plot and its characters, as much of an arsehole as Drew seemed to be, there was promise there, and it seemed like potentially I was going to get another something akin to Okami, because obviously Okami is a lot slower paced than any other game that Kamiya has done. And, well, apart from perhaps Resident Evil 2, but then that's a survival horror game and it's a different type of slow.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's what I was excited about. Was that obviously Okami is up there with being one of my favourite games of all time. So the fact of Kamiya going back to RPG-esque gameplay was quite an exciting prospect.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think the biggest Platinum Games disappointment for me is just that I enjoyed Transformers Devastation so much, and that was made by a B team, and then came TMNT, which just kind of kneecapped the streak, so to speak.
Yeah, TMNT was not good, but to be fair, obviously some blame should be laid at Platinum's feet, but I feel quite a lot of that is Activision. Because one of the things that I remember us saying in the Transformers Devastation playthrough was the one thing that Activision needed to do to make Platinum make good games is to give them the budget, the time, and the creative freedom. And quite clearly, TMNT did not have the budget all the time. And therefore, it obviously just died on its feet.
I mean, you can only polish your turd so much, mate.
Exactly. But then, obviously, Platinum have rejuvenated themselves somewhat with Nier Automata, which is excellent, by the way.
I really should play that, it looks fun.
You really should, and you should definitely play through it at least play through the game at least 3 times.
I know about the alternate endings and whatnot.
Yes, you need to. You need to make it all the way to the final proper ending. It's important. But yes, I believe that pretty much covers all of our Vine collecting stuff for the time. And hopefully we'll be able to continue somewhere in the world very soon.
That would be nice, considering we're just, like, backtracking right now, you know? Alright, guys, we shall see you next time when the Okami playthrough continues. Bye-bye.